You'd be surprised with how many personal trainers reach out to me to say, how do I understand the underlying issues related to my clients? So if that's you, welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the 5 areas of mindset that we want personal trainers to focus on so that it can better help their clients, but of course, help their business in creating a more holistic approach. So if you're ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind.
Yeehaw. Let's get straight into it.
So we did a episode on what we'd like to see change in the medical field. But then I was thinking about it. I said, so we're both a part of like these different forums, the Mind Pump Trainer Forum, the Mind Pump Private Forum, our own Facebook group. And I've had so many trainers reach out to me and say, like, how do I learn what you do? What certifications do you have? Can I work underneath you? And I would love to, eventually create a training for trainers. But what we're going to talk about today are just 5 of the most, I think, important aspects of mindset work when we're a personal trainer or nutrition coach that will help you create a trusting, intimate, vulnerable relationship with your clients within boundaries, while also making sure you stay in your lane to not cross, over what you can do in regard to your scope of practice. So for those who don't know, I actually am a trained therapist. I went through graduate school. I've had over 10,000 hours of practice in one-to-one both therapy and coaching with people. And that's why I have the ability to do a little bit more work and then train my staff and you obviously having your own experience in mental health, the other coaches having their own education in human behavior, able to kind of create this program and this curriculum that takes our program further than what we're going to talk about today. So I just want to say that because a lot of the things that I do, you may not feel comfortable with. And let's be honest, you may fuck someone up if you do it. So don't, just listen to what is possible for you and what is kind of, again, your lane.
Yeah. So let me speak a little bit into the coaches that are listening, because I am not a licensed therapist, right? But a lot of the work I do is I say I am a different kind of personal trainer. I work a lot more with the mindset piece. And I think a lot of trainers want to do that or don't realize that they should be doing that.
Right.
And so when I have trainers that reach out to me and they ask the same things, I'm like, you honestly need to understand that there is a skill to it. And I'm not saying I'm proficient in the skill. Trust me, I'm still learning and growing from it as well. But it definitely helps. Like Christina, essentially, I was an intern and I studied under her and I've worked with her for a very long time on my own shit.
If we had a certification in mindset, she would be certified.
Oh, cool.
Hey, welcome to Mindset Matter with certified mindset coach.
I'll tell myself, as your unlicensed therapist, right? But I also have to understand that one, Christina's not giving me clients and when I say giving me clients, because we funnel clients into her and then she divides them up among the coaches who is the best match. She is not going to give me a client that needs a higher level of like trauma care or insight or more therapeutic intervention because I'm not licensed to do that. So you have to understand there is a limitation to doing the mindset work with these clients. Now, there is also a benefit because when you go through, so for me, each time it's really interesting. I get a new client. I'm essentially re-going through the method. So your course that you created. And so each time I get an opportunity to become more proficient or to work on an own tweak of myself or to learn something new of how to help a client who may have the same reaction as somebody else that I had in the past.
Right.
So I do want to like kind of caveat that is just because you've been to therapy doesn't mean you can therapize somebody.
No.
Because I think that happens a lot too of like, I've been to therapy. I'm very like, I forget the term and I know it's like a knock, but like, I'm very like aware of things and behaviors of people. And it's like, self-aware. And it's like, yeah, but this is different. This is like people don't just become self-aware.
Right.
And so just because you went to therapy and now are a trainer and want to like enlighten others, doesn't, the majority of these people are not on the same path that you are. And it takes a lot more time and patience. So I do want to.
Well, even then there's a lot of stupid ass programs out there. I mean, the word trauma gets thrown around like
very lightly.
It's very lightly. Yeah. And I don't think trainers who are going through these like trauma informed is different than like a trauma healer coach bullshit program. I was on a podcast
like
once.
A wellness coach.
There are people who are doing like trauma work as coaches, and until you see a psychotic break because you don't understand that person's not ready to go there, but you force them to go there because that's what your certification taught you. And now you've uprooted a trauma that person's nervous system, body, whatever it is, was not ready for. And now you're fucked. And you're probably going to, you could get in a lot of trouble for that. So even for me as a therapist, because I practice as a coach, I am still outsourcing.
When you say coach, you're saying like a life coach, or are you saying a personal trainer?
No,
coach?
In the mindset of matter.
Okay.
Yes, I push the boundaries on what we discuss.
Sames.
But it's normally in the context of today. I have an understanding of why you do what you do, but we're not uprooting your trauma. Right. We are not.
I would say we're reconnecting the dots for you as opposed to going back and like exploring it.
Yeah. I'm not like I would in a therapeutic setting, having you somatically feel, experience, think about the bad thing that happened to you. Yeah. Right. That's not what we do here. So the difference, whereas a therapist might work with someone who doesn't have that agency and autonomy, the therapist helps them create that to then become the person that may eventually come to someone like us. Okay. Whereas our clients have the agency, the autonomy, and they're relying on themselves, and they have a strong enough sense of self and control of their emotional state and their mental state that we can then work with them forward. So we're today forward, where therapy can be today back, even though we touch on the back a bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. So number one is, and you guys, if you did listen to the medical, there's going to be some crossover, but we'll talk about it in context of the professions themselves, is understand yourself first.
Yeah.
This, in regards to personal trainers, is so important because oftentimes the things that you're doing and the reasons why you're doing them are disordered and they're rooted in your lack of self-worth or your own insecurities. So number one, start with yourself. When we're intersecting, right? The mind and the body, the way I'm thinking, what your goal is balance, right?
Yeah.
And so where are you unbalanced? Where is there unbalance in your life? Is it with your food, right? Are you someone who, and I hear this all the time with trainers, they're freaking out because they think they're gaining weight at 1,800 calories and the reverse diet didn't, or they haven't reverse dieted because they don't want to gain weight. And they want to give that advice to someone else and, be a menopause specialist and do all these things. And they don't even do it themselves.
Yeah.
They're super restrictive. They are eating the same foods at the same time, rarely good off course.
Yeah.
And then you want to help someone with their balance and mindset? No.
That's what I get. So for on my side of things is the pregnancy and postpartum stuff. What they'll say is like, oh, I did this stuff before and I like still have my mommy pooch, but we're going to solve this for them. And it's like, well, wait a second though. Like, how does that, when you say mommy pooch, what does that really mean to you? Right. And now you're like promoting that. And so are you playing on your insecurity with their insecurity and bringing that in? But what does that mean? Like, how do you untangle that? Now that may be like a grab statement to get clients in. I understand that.
Right.
But if you're saying and like promoting these things about yourself and using these derogatory terms, then how are you going to coach someone through it when you haven't done that for yourself? Exactly. Or how are you going to coach someone through it if you can't ask for support, like with your significant other. Yeah. And it makes it really hard. So you have to figure out, like you're saying, know your own shit, know what's not working for you. Because if you don't, you end up almost projecting your ideal self on other people and then becoming frustrated that they're not becoming that.
Yes.
When it's really you are frustrated with yourself.
Well, and that affects your coaching, and all you're doing is you're taking your inner critic and being a professional in that.
Yeah.
You're being a professional inner critic, and then you're projecting that onto that person. They then internalize it. Now their esteem is even worse than when you started in the first place. The other part, though, is when we're talking about number one, like start with yourself, is where are you inflexible? Because I'm thinking about someone specific. They're not only inflexible, but they validate their inflexibility, and they actually have like created this narrative around why their inability to be flexible is healthy.
Yeah.
And for that particular person, they're not how I'm talking. They should not be helping other people. They should be in treatment themselves. Where am I inflexible? Research shows that the healthiest people have the most flexibility in their lives, right? And
they make the choice of more instead of the rule of more,
or the rule of less, right? So where am I inflexible? Again, with food, with my exercise, with my step count, with if I have abs, if I don't have abs, where is that inflexibility? Then also be aware with how do you talk to yourself, right? Because if I gain a pound on the scale and I'm going into a full-blown shame spiral, then I'm probably not in the place to take care of anyone else doing that same thing.
Right.
And the last part of this is
knowing your own shit.
Yeah. What are your what are your thoughts about the person who doesn't do it the way you do it?
Right.
What are your thoughts about the person? And I struggle with this, who you really just think they're not following the plan. And then you get frustrated. Like, I don't understand why this person's, stuck, or I don't understand why this person isn't losing weight. What do you think about individuals who can't do it your way?
Right.
What kind of stuff comes up for you? Anything else you would add to that?
No.
So again, begin with yourself. What are your inflexibilities? What are your own thoughts, your own relationship with your body, food, exercise? What are your thoughts about other people and differing relationships with body, food, and exercise? And what are your disordered patterns?
I think that's a good segue, though, to number 2.
Yeah.
Is because stay in your lane.
Yes.
So like, for example, if you're recognizing you have these disordered patterns and now your client has these disordered patterns, maybe you're not the best help for them. And we need to either outsource to like a therapist or somebody else. Like, don't try and become what you're not to them, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Don't try and become like a dietitian when maybe they have like PCOS, history of eating disorder, and then they're on Ozempic or something like that.
Right.
Like that's a lot. If you're a novice and you have no experience with PCOS, you have no experience with eating disorders, and you have no experience with someone who's on a GLP-1.
Yeah.
Like there's someone that needs a higher education with that. And you don't need to try and do more. And I see a lot of that, like in the forums and the groups of like, they want to do more and provide more, but it's honestly a mindset issue. And if you're not comfortable walking through that with them and addressing that with them, that's something that we need to just kind of relieve. And honestly, too, it's interesting because like, if you're just offering programming and they're not doing it, that's a mindset issue on that client.
Which we'll talk about.
Yeah. So we either need to change the structure of your business, right? And I'm not going to get into that, or have a referral link.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Staying in your lane includes too, like you making sure you don't have this God complex that we're going to help everyone.
Because you can't, and you won't.
Well, in your scope of practice, you are limited, and the very, it's a very small list of what we're giving you today, because if you can utilize the skills that we're giving you, you are going to just create a better relationship overall for that person. You're going to create trust in that person. And that ultimately is going to allow for them to open up to you. And then we'll talk about what to do with that. But staying in your lane is, I'm really not, educated in this. I'm really struggling with my own stuff. Mm-hmm. Stop using that as a reason to help those people. Right. Like you said, I did that once. I got completely burnt out. Mm-hmm. I was in probably the lowest part of my life because I was, as I called it, the Tin Man. I was acting like the Tin Man, but really I was the Cowardly Lion because mm-hmm. I hadn't done the work on myself, but I was trying to do it with these other people. Yeah. And there was that very much that imposter syndrome plus my own shit mm-hmm. constantly coming up. Mm-hmm. And it was a disservice to my client. I talked about this in the medical episode. When you are having your own response in the moment or because of your client's behavior or lack thereof, you will project that as mm-hmm. we talked about. So if that's something, if you don't have the boundaries to disconnect yourself from your client, stay in your fucking lane, do something that's very simple and different.
Yeah. Or just provide your basic program. Right. You know, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with just providing a basic program or just providing a spreadsheet for calories mm-hmm. and whatnot. Like, but honestly, you have to understand that's where you're at.
Right.
Right.
I think of Crystal. She's so good at that.
Yeah.
She's just like, and it's the way she says it, of course, like, I just don't feel like I'm educated enough to do what you guys do. And that's probably, I mean, she doesn't go out of her way to do it either, and she does basic programming, basic macros, like does that work? It works for majority of her clients. Uh-huh. For those it doesn't, maybe she's referring them to us, uh-huh. right? And she stays in the lane that she also feels secure in, right? Because y'all know when you don't feel secure in something, you're trying to like read up on it real quick or throw it in the Mind Pump forum where people are like, I have this client who, and I'm like,
oh, it hurts my heart.
It hurts my heart. I'm like, no, that client does a behavior thing. Yeah. That client does not need to be in your care.
And then they go, oh, wow. So what do I do now? And I'm like, you need to refer out.
Right.
You either just need to provide the basic programming and do it and then refer out. Right. But like, this is torturous.
I've worked with plenty of personal trainers and I love these people because they have said, I'm going to continue doing their training and then they're going to work with you on the mindset piece. Right. And it's awesome. I think that's such a great thing, which is a part of our list here, but you need to stay in your lane. Stay in your lane in regards to your education and training. Stay in the lane in regards to your scope of practice as a personal trainer or nutrition coach. Stay in your lane in regards to your own reality mm-hmm. because you're not going to fix yourself by fixing or trying to fix other people. You're only going to fuck yourself up more and that person because you're trying to, fill a void by
trying to do it all, trying to be all when maybe, and it doesn't mean you can't be there. Mm-hmm. It just means right now it's not the time.
Right.
And then maybe that's where you decide like, oh, I'm going to get further education on this.
Well, I want to say too, like your scope of practice, you should not be working with anyone with an eating disorder. Do you know how many of my clients with a history of eating disorders have worked with trainers?
A lot.
And
how many trainers make it worse?
A lot. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. So you could work if the person is open to getting stronger, which is something that personal trainers can do. But as we're going to talk about, you're going to want to have this group around that person, which we'll get to. So that's coming your way. Number 3,
check their patterns.
Yes. Now we're getting into like what you can do to not shame your client or promote what diet culture promotes, which is do more. You're not doing enough. You're obviously fucking this up or you don't want it. We don't want to do any of that, mm-hmm. right? They're already getting that in societal messages. We want instead to look at their patterns, what they're doing and or what they're not doing. Uh-huh. Okay. So what do I mean by that? If I have a client who I set their macros for 1 pound of weight loss per week, and I see that client tracks Monday through Thursday, and then they don't track Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Uneducated Coach A is going to kind of give that talk of like,
I need you to track.
I can't do anything if you don't track. Yeah. You're not going to lose weight this way. This isn't in alignment with our goals.
Right.
They fucking know that. They fucking know that. Okay. So that's Coach A. Coach B says, hey, and we use, I'm going to give you guys a resource that's going to be super helpful. Motivational interviewing. Like hey, so I'm curious. I noticed over the course of the past 3 weeks, like you're tracking Monday through Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday are blank. What do you think is contributing to that? Or what do you think stands in the way of you tracking on the weekends? Mm-hmm. That's a totally different conversation. One is with compassion, care, and curiosity. The other is with criticism and like, you're a fuck up.
Yeah.
They already think they're a fuck up. They already think they can't do it. They already know they're not doing it. And then you end up being that person, that voice in their head. You end up being
like a realistic person of it. Yeah.
Like representation of that.
Yeah.
So looking at the patterns and seeing like, oh, she's not just lazy. So this goes back to number one. So check yourself. Are you making, what story are you making up in your head about that client? Oh, she's just being lazy. Or she's
not, she doesn't really want this.
Right.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, where are the patterns? What would you say about this?
For the check their patterns, it would be more so like on the training side of like, say we programmed it and they're not doing it. And so instead of being like, okay, they're lazy, they don't want to do it, or they haven't looked, it would be, I would say, I noticed that there hasn't been a check on the programs. Can you elaborate on what you think of them? Have you had time to look at them ahead of time? Mm-hmm. And if they go, no, I've been too busy. And I would say, okay, thank you for providing that feedback because that's helpful. Because everything is a thank you for providing feedback. Thank you for providing information. That's great insight. Thank you for, let me ask this.
Thanks for your honesty.
Yeah. Because it sounds silly, but it is, honestly, it is helpful that they felt too busy because then it gives me that little bloop.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So honestly, the workouts, you told me you could commit 3 times a week for 30 minutes, but I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. And I'm starting to sense that maybe we are.
Right.
Can I program maybe 1 exercise a day and we start there? What do you think of that? I always put it back on them of tell me what you think. And then if they go, I think I can do that. Great. Let's start there. Or I just feel like they'll say, oh, I feel like that's not enough.
Not enough. Yeah. I was going to say that.
And then it goes into, why do you feel that way? And then we go into the educational piece.
Right. Exactly.
Instead of saying, well, you said you could do 3 workouts, for 30 minutes a week.
You told me you could do it. Why didn't you do it?
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm just frustrated by this.
Oh,
yeah. I'm really frustrated.
I'm really frustrated or I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah.
Well, then you're putting a lot of their outcomes on you.
Yes.
As if you have some sort of control over it. Your job is to guide. It's not to, miraculously make them do. No, that's huge. Or maybe we break it down to like 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and paying attention to something like that. You are customizing it for your client and their lifestyle when you're able to look at the patterns, because again, when we're separating ourselves from the situation, I work from home. I have a gym at my house. I don't have children. My schedule is going to look a lot different than that client's schedule. And creating that custom experience and listening.
Yeah.
And sometimes seeing beyond, seeing things that clients not seeing. That's why they're hiring you.
Yeah.
Seeing their blind spots, compassionately pointing them out.
Right.
They then learn. They're going to learn then, hey, when life gets lifey, I don't have to not to do it. I can do 20 minutes, right? And that's enough because then we're educating too. So paying attention to patterns on their behaviors or lack thereof, patterns on, even the month, right? So we see patterns in closer to the cycle that we can address. We see patterns in seasons that we can address. We see, like, I have one client who has to drive her son to her father's house in Casa Grande every other week, and she wasn't getting her workout done. And she was able to be like, oh, it's because I'm fucking tired because I'm driving, 2 hours or whatever it is. So it's looking at patterns, just elaborating on that. Instead of just looking at the data and deciding if they're good or bad clients, look at the data, see the pattern, what might be happening here for this client, or ask them directly, what's up with this? Like, I really want to help you here, but I also want to make sure this makes sense for you. This makes sense for your life. What barriers, or one thing I talk about with my clients is a barrier belief. They have the goal, but they also have these barrier beliefs in their minds that I'm just going to gain the weight back anyways. This isn't going to be enough. So like the workout. And if you're still thinking of that barrier belief, and this is something you guys can talk about, what's your barrier beliefs? What are you telling yourself that's standing in your way? That's not therapeutic. That's just having a conversation. Right. Okay. Let's maybe make some affirmations or something to counter that when it's happening. And then being able to do this, you're going to create that experience for the client. It's just more, there's just so much more connection and safety and love and trust. And I think and also when you do this and you can get a little bit more underlying rather than the surface level of did they do it, did they not, you're going to have better results.
Well, I think a good point in going into our fourth point for this is we've touched on it of listen to what they're saying, listen to their language, not just look at their behavior. So I'm looking at the behavior. So let's go back to the client who's tracking Monday through Thursday, not Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's the behavior. Now, when I'm addressing that with them, what language are they using? I'm just too busy. Like, I feel like Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays are like my free days, or like, I'll
get back on track.
I'll get back on track on Monday. I know I just didn't do it this time. I can't remember what I had. We went out to eat. And then, okay, did they do it again and again and again? And this is like, sometimes I think coaches are really quick to try and address something from language and behavior, but sometimes you have to give them the opportunity to express it and repeat that phrase. So like, I'll start again on Monday. I'll start again on Monday. Oh, on Monday, I'll get back on track. And now this is the third week I've heard that. So what about Mondays is so important to them, right? What does that really mean? And so, and I had also made the comment of like, hey, did you have a chance to look at the workouts? And they're, I'm just so busy. Right. So to me, okay, I'm so busy is a common phrase. What does that mean for this person?
Right. No, I agree. Listening to the language is incredibly important. So you're going to hear aspects of all or nothing thinking. So like what you're talking about, you're going to hear aspects of like self-defeat. I just can't figure out why I can't do this, or why haven't I figured this out yet? You're going to hear aspects of perfectionism.
Predictionisms.
And predictionism. I haven't said that in a while. Good call. Mindset
coach.
Well, I'm going to talk. Yes. Certified mindset coach for perfectionism. Well, I couldn't get my hour workout done. And so I just didn't do it at all. You'll hear aspects of, well, my kid got really sick and I had to take care of her, even though they have a husband, that could stand in, or, my mom just needed me all of the time. So I wasn't able to get my stuff in. So now we're dealing with someone who's a people pleaser. And again, like there is some education, the things I just mentioned, people pleasing, all or nothing, like these are cognitive distortions. But you can even call them their own thing. Like, is, pleasing Patty coming around. Like you can make them like aspects of that person that are just sides of themselves or whatever that looks like. Listening to the language is going to help you understand kind of what we're talking about in regards to patterns. And number 3 of, okay, this person is that, good or bad, even food.
Yeah. Oh, I was good this weekend. You'll be so proud of me.
Yes.
Because that's like 5 red flags right there.
Correct.
I was good this weekend. Okay. So now we're using good, bad. This weekend is that way. Okay. So now I'm,
the weekend is different than the week.
And then you'll be so proud of me. Now I'm a parent figure or an authority figure that they want to please. And so therefore, if say they were bad this weekend, now I am a negative figure in their light.
Right. Exactly. And the clients do that all the time where they look at you as that parent, as if, I don't want to let you down, or I don't want to disappoint you.
Just feel like I'm your worst client.
Yeah. Or I'm too much. Yeah. And it's like, no. Nope. And I'll tell clients like, you're making this about me, and that's a way to avoid you. So I'm going to have you reframe that statement.
Yeah, that's it.
I say that all the time.
I just go, all I say is reframe this.
Reframe this. We do it all the time. Yeah. Reframe it. Nope, not doing that today.
What's our face say? Go ahead.
Yeah. And no, that's huge. And going back to number 1, if you know your own stuff and you're someone who actually gets off on being that parent figure, then we have a big fucking problem, right? Yeah. And you then have to create a boundary in yourself. You have to create that boundary with your client, or just not work with clients like that in the first place. Yes. So that, good versus bad food, and checking your own self, making sure you're not reiterating good versus bad, on or off, perfect, fail, to too much, overwhelmed. I just couldn't do it all. That's another one. It's like, that then tells me that this person's in the mindset of like, there has to be a perfect time to do this when we can
start today,
start
at lunch,
start right now.
Yeah.
And then now. So listen to language is really, really important.
Number 5, collaborate.
Yes. Yeah. So we've done our own work. We figured out our triggers, our thoughts, our feelings, the things that we need to work on in ourselves. And I guess we didn't add do the work on yourself to number 1. Number 2, stay in your lane, know your scope of practice, and or if you are reaching to help this person when you don't have business to do so, don't be doing it.
Correct.
And or if you're trying to fill a void for yourself by helping this client, don't do that either. So stay in your lane. Number 3, look at patterns, right? Look at patterns over time, connect the dots, start seeing, okay, this isn't working for this client. And that doesn't mean anything about you as a coach. It means that this isn't working for the client, right? Start having that conversation with your clients. Start to customize and design programs for them that make sense for their lives. And then as you're doing that, listen to the language to understand kind of where their minds are. Listen for those barrier beliefs. Listen for the good, the bad, the black or white thinking. And then when we do all of that and we're like, holy shit, this person's got a lot of shit, we collaborate with others.
Yeah.
And we then at a certain point refer to a mindset coach, a therapist, dietitian, yes, a PT, whatever that looks like.
Chiropractors.
Yes. I have decade plus experience in trauma healing. I refer my clients to EMDR often.
Yeah.
Often.
Like, I refer my clients a lot to physical therapy. I'm like, look, I can't see you. Something's going on.
Yes.
I need someone to look at you.
Yeah. My one client, like we both she was a professional dancer and we both have torn labrums. She's like, what should I do? I go get an MRI.
Yeah.
She's like, I can't walk. I'm like, what the fuck do you think I'm going to do?
Yeah.
from Arizona and you're in Georgia. No, like, love you, by the way. But she was like, fuck, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
But have a network. We do that very well. It's hard for us though, because we do have clients all over the world, but even then I will research, and collaborate with other therapists, with dietitians, with doctors, with so many of my clients' team around them. Because at a certain point, again, if we're looking at all 5 of these, recommendations, we're going to learn the patterns. We're going to listen to the language. We're going to have those hard conversations with our clients. But at a certain point, we won't be in our lane. And that's where having a network of people is going to be helpful for you and say, hey, you know what? I want to make sure that I'm focusing on the nutrition and, exercise aspect of things. Here's a number to a therapist that I think would be really helpful in understanding a little bit more to why you're, all or nothing thinking is there, or, the pain is there, or whatever that looks like. Also, guys, just from a business perspective, when you refer to people refer to you.
Correct.
So the more that you are collaborating with others, the better it is for your business.
Yeah. And I think honestly, because personal trainers have a negative light in them because we don't collaborate or outsource, I think this is a great opportunity for personal trainers to mend that wound on our business and our practices.
Yeah.
Because if I'm referring out, I'm saying, I don't know what to do. Help me and help her. And they're going to go, that's wonderful. Like, thank you. Professionals tend to be like, thank you for not fucking them up more. Right. And then they send them back, or say they've got somebody, like, for example, I've had chiropractors and PTs where they're kind of done with that client, but that client's not really ready to go on their own and transition, but they want to strength train and do the thing. So they kind of send them to me as a step down, and then they come to me, we work through the shit, and then they step away and do their own and they thrive.
Right. Well, it was like the conversation I had with the other MFT when I was doing the news segment. he said, for us, there are people who show up into our practice who we have to diagnose individuals. And either we're just throwing a label on someone that doesn't need it just for insurance benefits, or they literally don't meet the criteria. So having someone like you to refer them to, because they're kind of mind body as well. Yeah. They do a lot of like psychedelics in their practice. They also do a program where they're putting therapists in ERs in hospitals.
Wow. That's probably beneficial.
Yeah. And so
I could see that.
We talked a lot about that. I want to have him on to like have that conversation about, again, mind body and, where we're seeing patterns as physicians that person just keeps coming to you with that same thing. And at a certain point, we have to think, is this somatic, right? Yeah. Is this in the body because of the mind? That's another conversation. But he was like, yeah, I mean, you're perfect to have people, refer those people who we are not diagnosing and that don't meet that requirement, and vice versa.
Which was your whole vision anyways.
Exactly. Yeah. They said that when I did the referral group, not referral group, but the networking group with the eating disorder community. And they're like, once that client gets past us, right, we're not just going to say, okay, you're done. Like, then we want to reincorporate things like exercise and, whatever that looks like for them, because doing it with you is going to be a lot more beneficial than doing it with a coach that has no idea how to handle someone who's had a diagnosis of eating disorder. So have that referral source. And, I'm not going to say I've seen any mindset program that is life-changing. A lot of our certifications have a behavioral aspect to them. Maybe one day I'll create a course.
Well, I would say in the meantime, a great opportunity would be the self-guided course that you have for trainers to go through, because, and I always tell them, go through that course, because there's going to be things you can pick apart. And then you're going to start to be able to put that, I don't want to say like put it into your clients' brains, but start using it with them.
Yes.
And start there.
No, I agree. Even our coaches that I hire for this program have to go through the self-guided program. So they do their own work. So that goes with number one, kind of uncovering your own stuff and your blind spots, being aware of them. And then for you, I mean, obviously in the self-guided course, you have the ability to reach out to me. And if you're just realizing like, wow, like, fuck, I've got some shit. I mean, how many coaches have gone through our program who are now thriving in their businesses? There's so many of them. But for those who are not, and you're like, okay, I need a little bit more help on this, you either work with us, which is super helpful, because then you can also see how we incorporate the physical, the nutritional, all of that. Or you go to your therapist and you start working on that stuff yourself. So we'll set a link to the self-guided program in the show notes below. I do want to move it from Optima Funnels back into Everfit.
Ooh,
it's just easier. This is going to take a lot of time, a lot of time. So again, just to reiterate our 5 steps: start with yourself, know your triggers, know your disordered patterns, where you're not being flexible, where you're off balance, and then also your own beliefs about other people and expectations you're creating about how clients should show up in your program. I don't think we touched on that, but kind of thinking like everyone's going to show up gung-ho and ready to go.
They're not.
They ain't. Number 2, stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah. Sorry. So stay in your lane, know your scope of practice, know who you can and cannot work with, what you can and cannot do in regards to opening up conversations. And again, if you're trying to fill a void in your life and wanting to help everyone and have the God complex, or you're not doing the work on yourself, but if you do it with everyone else and they're thriving, then you're okay. That's not your lane, babe. Get out of that lane. Number 3,
check your patterns. Check their patterns.
Check their patterns.
Check their patterns.
What are the commonalities? Where are their downfalls? Where are they thriving? Because that's actually something we didn't talk about, is maybe they do really well in a certain area. How are they doing well in that area? What is, creating that sense of motivation in that area? Also, another thing I want to put in there is use their jobs. Use what they do for a living to help them understand where some of their downfalls are.
Mhm.
I've used examples of like dentists of like, okay, well, how do you know someone's not flossing? They're like, well, they come in, their gums are all, decayed or whatever, bleeding and swollen. Okay, but they're telling you that they're flossing. So, how would you, without having that data, how would you know? And what I was trying to get at, I'm not saying this example right, but what I was trying to get at is the fact she wasn't tracking and like expecting me to just figure it out, right? I don't have gums that are bleeding.
Yeah.
So I have weight. But anyways, number 4, listen to language. That's going to be a huge one for you. Understanding, again, those barrier beliefs, all or nothing thinking, the perfectionism. And then if you're seeing that that's really disrupting the client's life, number 5, we have a referral network to refer out to.
Yeah.
Anything else you would add?
I'm sure, but I would have to like stew.
Yeah. I think that's a good,
those are good. Like, yeah, because even
list.
those had subcategories that we could have gone into.
And do the self-guided course. It is $48 and you get access to the course for a year, which is nice because you can come back to it. You can rework some things. Even if you've done therapy on yourself, I've had plenty of clients go through the self-guided course after years and years of therapy and discover things about themselves they didn't in their therapeutic practice. Just don't fucking copy it because I'll come after your ass. Other than that, anything else?
No.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this information. If you don't want to miss any of these episodes because you found it so valuable, please make sure to give us a follow anywhere you listen to podcasts or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Mindset Mirror Connection. You can also follow us on our brand new Instagram, the Mindset Mirror Connection Pod, which is where all of our content will be. We have now separated it into its own segment, its own Instagram page. And if you want information on the self-guided course, please check out the show notes. You'll also find a link to our clarity call as well. And as a coach, as a trainer, you need to make sure that you understand this one last thing. To be the best coach you can be.
What you say in the mind,
you see in the mirror.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.